Hey guys, it's Lord here, back again with another edition of Throwback Thursdays, and what I have for you today is the Kenner Gargoyles Deluxe Mighty Roar Goliath. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, since I no longer have the packaging for this figure, let us first take a look-see at his lone accessory, which is this awesome gargoyle wing halberd axe staff thingy. Spear. Got a spear on the end too. Really cool looking weapon, and you know, if NECA's gonna make homages to the old Kenner weapons like they're doing with Brooklyn and his lance, this would be a real cool one to have. But pretty straightforward accessory. This fits right in his hand like so. And he can hold it like that. Pretty straightforward. Nothing too complicated there. But a cool accessory nonetheless. A little bit loose, but yeah, you can make it work. Taking a closer look at the mighty Goliath here. No pun intended. Okay, maybe a little bit. This was actually the first of the two deluxe figures I got. I did not get Power Wing first. I got this guy first. I got him when I graduated high school. Shout out to Mr. Brian, aka my dad, aka the old man, for the hookup on that. That said, you're probably wondering, what's so mighty about his roar? I don't see any buttons or anything. Well, that's because the button is hidden in his belt buckle here. It's right there, and you can see the speaker on his chest there. But it all kind of melds in together and looks fairly seamless for an action feature of this time. We're used to seeing big giant buttons and apparatuses and whatnot. This is very subdued. It's very streamlined. There's no massive kibble anywhere. He just takes a couple of, I want to say, AAAs in his back. AAA getting better every day, you know what I'm saying? But we're actually going to take a look at that before we move on to size comparisons, because I want to make sure you guys can see the light emanating from Goliath's face here, because it is very bright and in some lighting very kind of warm as far as the hue goes. So we're going to wait and do that a little bit later. Stay tuned. But as far as articulation on this guy goes, he is probably the most Staction-esque figure of this line. His arms move up and down. His wings will fold back and back forward. And then his tail will rotate. And that's all you get. You do not get anything in the legs, nothing in the head. That is it. Very Thalog looking though. Look at this guy. He is very Thalog looking. I would say if the purple was darker, the armor was silver, and he had a crown on his head, you could just call this a Thalog figure. But alas, we never got any Thalog figures in this line. Still perplexed about that, especially considering we got this guy and Quick Strike Goliath, who are really effing close to Thalog in my opinion. But that is really kind of it for Mighty Roar Goliath. Of the two deluxe figures, I still think I would recommend the Power Wing a little bit more, just because it's a little bit more accurate and you get a little bit more for your money. As far as articulation goes, that is, because you can move his legs, his arms, his tail. I assume you can fit him in some of the vehicles too, whereas this guy is pretty much stuck in this awesome pose, which again, it's an awesome pose, but I like to pose my figures up a little bit, you know? So with that being said, before we take a look at some size comparisons, let's take a look at the Mighty Roar in action. Now before we take a look at the Mighty Roar in action, I took the precaution to adjust the lighting accordingly so Goliath's face isn't swallowed up by the light emanating from said Mighty Roar gimmick when it is in action. So without further ado, as I always say, let's take a look-see at the Mighty Roar. And as you can see, even though I have turned down the lights very much so, his face is still very engulfed by the light emanating from within, so. Pretty cool, though. It actually has a slight warm hue to it. Almost seems like it's a super bright red as opposed to a stark white. And it's particularly noticeable on some of the photographs I took of this guy. But not so much in the video itself. So there is your Mighty Roar gimmick. Kind of wish it lasted a little longer and maybe, just maybe, had some audio from the show, particularly the roar from the intro where Goliath spreads his wings up. But it is what it is, and for the time, it's still pretty cool. So with that being said, let's now move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here is our Mighty Roar Goliath next to the only other figure in the Kenner Gargoyles line that kind of gives me Thalog vibes, the Quick Strike Goliath. And as you can see, based off the darker colors of these two skin and the red eyes they both have, forgot to mention that earlier, when Mighty Roar Goliath goes off, his eyes actually glow red. You can see why I think these guys are a little bit more reminiscent of Thalog, more so than Goliath. And last, but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legions, Brother Mandibulus. Okay, love and spawn as usual. Ours over everyone. So with that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and as cool as this iteration of good old Goliath is from the Kenner Gargoyles line, I think of the two deluxe figures released, the Power Wing Goliath is still the one to get. First and foremost, it is more show accurate, and secondly, it looks a lot more like Goliath, while this one, again, is giving me a lot more Thalog vibes. But if you have the money, I would highly suggest you get both, because I think they are both really cool in their own right, even though this one here is a little bit more on the staction side. That said, like the Power Wing Goliath, this one fetches a pretty penny on the aftermarket. You're probably looking at anywhere between 50 to 100 bucks to get this thing carded, much like the Power Wing Goliath. So good luck hunting this guy down. I hope you find him for a good price if you are interested in picking him up. If not, maybe pass on by and try to complete the Manhattan Clan. I don't think they're as expensive, although I could be wrong, especially in Hudson's case. Dare I say, yeesh. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's edition of Throwback Thursdays, and if you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when you don't know how mighty your roar is. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.